The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.
I'm Kirti Menon, Senior Director for the Division for Teaching Excellence, University of Johannesburg. Welcome to this podcast where I am speaking to Dr. Gloria Castrillon, Director of the Center for Academic Planning and Quality Promotion. Today we are talking about program amendments. This may not be as complex as you may consider, and I hope that you find this podcast valuable. What we will be doing is setting out some very practical steps to assist you when amending an existing program, guiding you with the processes that it needs to go through within the university, and how you should think about what these amendments mean or what consequences these amendments may have. The most important thing, of course, is to know that our staff at the Center for Academic Planning and Quality Promotion are available to help you, along with your HAFAs as well as your faculty committees who will guide you on the processes to be followed. So, Dr. Castrillon, when do we have program amendments which must be submitted to CENEX?
A program amendment is submitted to CENEX, and it's needed when a change is made to a module or a program which results in a change either to the academic structure, in other words to the curriculum, or to the yearbook, to the way in which the curriculum is represented in the yearbook. If you're not sure of whether you need an amendment to go to CENEX or not, it's advisable to check with the registrar. But some of the most common examples are when you increase or decrease the module value of a credit. And the reason, of course, is because that impacts on the total number of credits in the program. It may impact on the total number of credits for a particular year of study, and it may impact on the credits that are at the exit level, all of which are concerns. When you change the year of study for a particular module, let's say you move a module from second to third year, if you change the NQF level of a module itself, if you add or remove a module from the curriculum, if you change admission requirements or selection criteria, or if you add new selection criteria, if you change the promotion requirements are, for example, when a student is considered a second year moving to a third year and so on. And if you change the rules of combination, which, for example, are pre, co, and post requisites in a qualification. And finally, if you change the outcome or the purpose of a program or a module. Those are all instances of an amendment that goes to CENEX.
What are the forms or documents that I need to submit if I have an amendment?
Okay, so a program amendment must have two documents or comprise two documents, the CENEX cover sheet and the amendment form itself. These are available from your faculty's program advisor or your PWG program working group representative. And of course, the Center for Academic Planning and Quality Promotion staff can also supply you with these.
So, would you be able to tell me which structures within the university approve these program amendments?
Okay, yes, there are three, and this is on the instruction of CENEX. All amendment applications must come first to the program working group, and then they are approved there before they are being then submitted to CENEX for final approval. Faculty board approval is also needed, and that can be either before program working group or after program working group, depending on the dates of the various meetings. But every amendment must come to PWG before it goes to CENEX. So you'll time your faculty in between PWG or before or after, and then CENEX.
So when I put an application in for an amendment, what are the aspects that the program working group are looking for?
Remember, because an amendment can impact on the way in which a program is run, the PWG will only approve an amendment when it's clear that the impact of that amendment on the program itself and on any other program offered in another department or by another faculty has been given full and proper consideration. You could change, for example, the credit values in a BCom, and a BA student doing that module, it may have an impact there. So you must show that you've considered both of those. You must also, the PWG must also have that at least 5 days before the closing date, so that if these aspects are not properly examined, there's time to actually go back and correct that. The amendment must account for all programs in which the module appears. So bear in mind that the code for the module that you're changing could be different in another qualification, even if it's in the same faculty, but certainly it must actually be checked for all qualifications in which it appears. And there is a pivot table which appears in the Program Working Group folder in HEDA, which links every module to every qualification in which it appears in the university. You must also have in your application shown that you have done a full and proper assessment of the impact of that change. For instance, if you change the pass mark, what impact will that have on throughput? If you remove a module from a curriculum, what teach-out arrangements will you have made? What arrangements for replacement modules are there? And finally, regardless of whether the impact is good or bad or whatever it is, you must have evidence, in other words, signed documentary evidence that you have consulted with other faculties, with other departments, and the signatures of the vice dean or the dean are there to indicate that they are happy with those changes in their qualifications.
Is this especially important in service modules?
Yes, it is, particularly because service modules run across several different programs, different faculties, and remember we are looking at rules which require 120 credits minimum per year of study, and in the case of a degree 360 credits minimum, or of a 4-year degree 480 credits, and a 1-year qualification 120. So we have to bear in mind that changes cannot detract from those minima that are required.
What are the issues that could prevent me from receiving approval for an amendment at any of these levels, PWG, Faculty Board,
Yes.
or CENEX?
So often those are issues where there are unintended consequences. For example, if you change the pass mark, your intention is clearly not to reduce your throughput rate, but that may actually happen. If you add selection criteria, perhaps you do want to restrict intake, but if you haven't considered what the market out there is like in terms of which students will be applying, you may end up with fewer students and impact on your enrollment plan. So it's absolutely essential to consider what the implications are for facilities. Will you need extra classrooms, for instance? What happens to the workload? Who's going to teach additional modules, for argument's sake? Will there be an added burden on the administrators? How will that burden be managed? Will there be an impact on student throughput and success rates? What are the teach-out implications? Will I have to run 2 modules where 1 module could do? So all of these implications must be considered, and importantly, you have to show that you have planned for the consequences, for the results of the change. And all of that information must be included in the amendment. It's important to have asked and answered those questions before it goes to Program Working Group, Faculty Board, and CENEX.
Are there ever times where I could make a change and it does not have to go anywhere?
Yes, there are changes that happen internally to a department or that happen internally to a faculty. For example, if you are teaching a module and you want to change a reading, or you want to change a theory that you'd apply, or a programming language, or any of those. So in other words, strictly content, because remember, content is just how we reach an outcome. So the outcome doesn't change, the credit value doesn't change. If you're just changing the material that is being used to teach that, there's no need for it to go outside. Then you would simply have to adhere to whatever your department's or faculty's rules are relating to that.
One of the areas that confuses people out there when undertaking changes is the rule about 50% change requirements. What is this 50% rule?
So the 50% rule is actually a DHET rule, a Department of Higher Education and Training rule, and it relates primarily to the funding that is given to the university for qualifications. The DHET says if you change 50% of a program, you have to resubmit that as a new program, because in the funding formula there are going to be changes. So it's most easily understood by way of example. Let's think about, you have a postgraduate diploma and you have an honours degree, and both of them are in the same discipline. But there are fundamental differences between a PG Dip and an honours. For example, a PG Dip, there is no requirement for research. An honours, there is a requirement for a 30 credit research project. So if I've got an honours qualification and I think, I'm going to remove the research requirement, I'm effectively changing that to a PG Dip. But I'm not actually even changing 50% of the qualification. I am changing 100% of the qualification, because it's the nature of the qualification that is changing. Another example, you have a qualification that is 360 credits, it's a bachelor's degree, and you decide it now should be a 480 credit bachelor's degree, which the HEQSF, the Higher Education Qualification Sub-Framework, does make provision for. If you change that, you've changed the overall nature of the qualification, you have to make a new application. If you think, well, I've got this PG Dip on NQF level 8, but actually the market really only needs an advanced diploma on NQF level 7, you can't simply change the name and offer it as an advanced diploma. That is a substantive change. It has to be submitted as a new program. So you can see the difference between the kinds of changes that we spoke about earlier and these kinds of really substantive changes.
Are there some grey areas in this 50% rule?
They are. So think, for example, about a program where there are two examples. Think about a program where the actual nature of the discipline has changed. So if we think of artificial intelligence, for instance, artificial intelligence used to really speak to computer science, but now it speaks to a whole lot of human sciences. So if you were to change a qualification's name from cognitive science to artificial intelligence, that's really a change in the sector. That is not a grey area, not a 50%, you'd be fine. But consider, for example, you've got a qualification in biodiversity. Biodiversity is a very specific area of study, and you suddenly decide, well, actually conservation is very popular, I'm going to change this to conservation. Well, that's actually a grey area, because on the one hand, it could be a complete change to the qualification. If you are making this about conservation practices in which biodiversity is an element, that could be different to actually changing the whole program. So you have to really ask yourself, what is the intention of my change? What is it that I'm doing? And what impact does that have on the qualification? And again, if you're unclear, the Centre for Academic Planning and Quality Promotion can assist you.
So are you saying that if I change the purpose and nature of a program, I should consider submitting for internal and external approval?
Absolutely. If you're changing the nature and purpose of a program, you have a de facto new program. So that would need you to go internally and externally to the regulator. But if you are making changes to the program that are less substantive than that, then you are fine. That is an amendment.
Can you perhaps give me some examples which are not in line with this 50% rule?
Okay. The difference between content and outcomes in a program is important. If you are not changing the outcomes, so I'm keeping this as a program which produces master's level graduates able to do economic analyses. But in order to do so, I am changing all the content that we used to do. So we used to look at a particular theory. We're now moving away from Porter's 5 forces and we're looking at some new theory. That's an example. You can change that internally, absolutely no problem, because you are not fundamentally changing that it is a master's in economics, which enables graduates to do high-level analyses. If you are changing entry requirements, that's not a 50% change ever, because nothing about the entry requirements will change the fact that it's a master's qualification. If you are changing the rules of combination, for instance, I would like all students to do mathematics because in order to do this aspect of economics, they need to do mathematics. Again, not a 50% change. If you change electives, if you add electives, take electives out, change a core module, all of those things are internal amendments. And those are the kinds of amendments where you can achieve a great currency. In other words, you can keep a program really relevant and fresh and up to date without ever going to the regulators. And that's permitted. We're not cheating in any way. That's absolutely the intention.
Am I right that these changes that you just spoke of will still have to be submitted to your faculty, to the PWG, to CapQuip for consideration, to Senex?
Absolutely. And they go to Senate. They are noted from Senex to Senate, and that is the CHE's requirement, that our governance processes and procedures for quality, for changes to qualifications are approved by Senate.
Would you be able to give me a few examples of when changes are made and they now have to be submitted externally?
Yes, there are some that are absolutely not negotiable. For instance, if you wish to move from contact learning to distance learning, at the moment in the current regulatory framework, that is an absolute requirement to go external. So you can't simply decide, I've got this distance learning program, I'm going to offer it by contact learning because I have 50 students and they want to come onto campus. You have to make an application. Secondly, if you change or add a site of delivery, so if, for example, we've been offering a program historically in one site and now we want to add it to another site of delivery, we have to go to the external parties for that. And that means going to the DHET and going to the Council on Higher Education. If you want to change the name of a program, for instance, we recently changed the name of History Studies to History, which is more in keeping with contemporary approaches to the discipline. That also needs to go externally, a change to a qualification name. So those are absolutely indisputable. We have no choice. We have to go external.
Thank you very much, Gloria. This is really helpful, and I think that should we need further clarifications, where can academics go?
Absolutely. Please come to the Centre for Academic Planning and Quality Promotion. Everything we do is about helping academics to navigate this regulatory and the internal governance procedures to ensure that we have continuously relevant and up-to-date programs. And we've got a full team who are more than happy to assist at any time. Thank you.
Thank you.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.